Before we dive into the shadows of history, let me ask you this. Have you ever wondered why empires, kings, and rulers who seemed invincible suddenly crumble, leaving ruins behind that whisper cautionary tales across centuries? Stick with me, because this isn't just history, it's a story about choices, power, and the human spirit. By the end, you'll see why survival is never about comfort, and why the throne can be more dangerous than the battlefield. Religious references on power and ruin. Torah. Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. Proverbs 16:18. Even in ancient Israel, unchecked power and arrogance were warnings carved into law and story. Bible Christian Testament. For all who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Luke 14:11. History is full of rulers who ignored this divine principle, only to see their legacies crumble. Quran. Do not let the wealth or power you possess make you forget the limits set by Allah. Those who transgress will find ruin. Surah Al-Hadid 57:20. A stark reminder that human dominion is temporary, and arrogance invites destruction. Imagine a ruler seated on a colossal throne, dark as obsidian, gilded in gold accents. He leans forward, hands gripping the armrests with such intensity it seems the throne itself might shatter under his weight. Behind him, the city burns. Smoke rises from toppled towers, from shattered temples, from marketplaces that once thrived with laughter and commerce. The camera of history zooms in on his shadowed silhouette, the rim light of fire reflecting on his gold-trimmed armor. This is a ruler who believes power is eternal. Yet, as fire glows against his throne, the echoes of wisdom long ignored whisper that dominion is fragile. The temptation of absolute authority, power, when unchecked, seduces even the wisest into hubris. The pharaohs of Egypt, adorned in gold and feared across continents, commanded legions and built monuments that scraped the sky. But the biblical Torah warns us, Pharaoh's heart hardened, and with each act of arrogance, the foundations of his kingdom weakened. It is a pattern repeated across civilizations. The rulers who trusted in themselves over divine or natural law often sowed the seeds of their own collapse. In the story of King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, pride blinded judgment. The Bible recounts, he was driven from people and ate grass like oxen, until he acknowledged that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of men. Daniel 4:33. History whispers a lesson. Those who confuse power with immortality forget that human constructs, no matter how mighty, are ephemeral. Early warnings ignored. Rome's last landowners. In the twilight of the Roman Republic, wealthy landowners clung to old systems. The economy was shifting, taxation reform was essential, and new methods of governance emerged. Yet, they resisted. Their greed blinded them to survival, their comfort dictated choices over necessity. The result: revolts, civil wars, and eventually the transformation of Rome into an empire that no longer resembled the republic they cherished. Qing dynasty merchants. During the late Qing era, merchants had opportunities to industrialize. Machines could increase production, increase wealth, and stabilize markets. But they feared change. The comfort of tradition overruled the logic of innovation. Western powers exploited this hesitation, and centuries of wealth and culture were imperiled. Ottoman guilds and factories. Guilds were resistant to mechanization. Their skills were revered, but their insistence on preserving old methods slowed industrialization. The empire could have modernized its economy decades earlier, yet comfort became a silent killer. Lesson: power, if it ignores adaptation, risks ruin. The throne may look eternal, but the kingdom crumbles beneath. Architecture is witness. Buildings, monuments, and cities are not just stone and mortar. They are mirrors of a ruler's decisions. In feudal Japan, peasants resisted migration to fertile lands, choosing comfort over survival. Crop rotation in medieval Europe faced opposition because farmers clung to the old ways. The consequences were clear: famine, weakened populations, revolts. Cities decayed. The very structures built to house civilizations became tombstones of misjudgment. Fire, smoke, and ruin are not mere metaphors, they are testimony to choices ignored, lessons dismissed, and humility rejected. Human ego versus divine order. The story of rulers is the story of human ego clashing with universal laws. The Quran repeatedly reminds us that arrogance invites downfall. Do not walk on the earth with pride. You cannot tear the earth apart, nor reach the mountains in height. Surah Al-Isra, 1737. Those who sit on grand thrones, seeing themselves as untouchable, often mirror this very hubris. Their silhouettes, imposing against fire-lit ruins, are not symbols of eternity but warnings, reminders of what happens when power forgets morality, wisdom, and divine limits. The weight of choice. Every decision made from a throne reverberates through society. The glow of gold may seduce, but history shows us the consequences of ignoring humility. French wine regions ignored the phylloxera blight for decades, valuing tradition over survival. The result was decades of ruin for the industry. Medieval Europe's initial resistance to crop rotation led to famines. Feudal Japan's attachment to ancestral lands weakened communities when nature demanded change. Power without foresight is ruin in slow motion. The ruler may appear dominant, the city may seem under control. But the cracks appear subtly: a tax revolt, a failed harvest, an industrial gap until collapse is inevitable. Imagine the scene. The ruler grips the throne, leaning forward. Firelight dances across his face, catching gold embroidery. The city behind him is engulfed in smoke and flames. Towers fall in slow motion. Markets are silent, roads cracked and abandoned. A thin wisp of wind carries ash toward the horizon. Every visual cue is intentional. The story of a civilization brought to ruin by decisions made in comfort, arrogance, and denial. The throne is bright, the ruler clear, but the background blurs cinematic focus, emphasizing isolation and impending doom. When tradition traps survival, the most fatal decisions are often the ones that feel safest. Late Roman landowners. During the late Roman Republic, wealthy elites resisted taxation reform meant to stabilize the empire. They clung to inherited privileges, believing their comfort guaranteed their safety. Reformers warned them, failure to adapt will provoke revolt. And revolt came, civil wars ignited, cities burned, and the very republic they swore to protect transformed into an empire ruled by ambition rather than law. The moral: when comfort trumps necessity, ruin becomes inevitable. The throne might look powerful, but the foundation beneath it is eroding. Qing merchants and industrial hesitation. In Qing-era China, merchants hesitated to adopt industrial techniques, fearing the unknown. Markets could have flourished, yet stagnation ruled. European powers capitalized, flooding the economy with cheaper goods and technology. The result? A weakened dynasty, exploited and pressured from all sides. Comfort here was literal. Clinging to old techniques felt safe. Yet safety without foresight is the quiet architect of disaster. Ottoman guilds. Craftsmen and guilds resisted mechanization, valuing tradition over efficiency. Factories could have modernized production, strengthened the empire, and increased prosperity. Instead, stagnation bred vulnerability. Eventually, foreign competition penetrated Ottoman markets, and centuries of economic dominance slipped away. History repeats. Refusing adaptation for comfort leads to decay, and even mighty thrones cannot withstand the consequences. Nature's warning signs ignored. History isn't always political. Often, it's environmental, social, or economic signals that precede collapse. Medieval European crop failures. Resistance to crop rotation caused famines, weakening populations and sparking social unrest. Feudal Japan's peasant attachment. Peasants resisted migration, clinging to ancestral lands. Their refusal to adapt made entire villages vulnerable to droughts and resource shortages. French wine industry phylloxera, ignoring scientific warnings for decades, decimated vineyards and economies. These examples show a common pattern. Arrogance combined with comfort delays critical decisions. And by the time the warning is clear, ruin is already underway. The psychological grip of power. Why do rulers ignore obvious threats? Power seduces. Absolute authority creates a bubble where warnings sound like whispers and advice feels like rebellion. Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. The Bible recounts his hubris, pride, and eventual punishment. His empire was vast, yet personal arrogance blinded him to the fragility of his rule. Pharaohs of Egypt resistant to divine or practical warnings, the heart hardened, plagues struck, and the society quivered under the consequences. Mughal emperors, some clung to luxury and courtly rituals while northern frontiers faced revolts, weakening the empire over decades. Lesson: power isolates. The higher the throne, the thinner the connection to reality. Civilizations as mirrors. Empires are reflections of their leaders' choices. A burning city is not only destruction. It's a story etched into walls, monuments, and ruins. Rome's Forum, later stages. Wealthy elites ignored inequality and corruption. Riots and upheaval followed. Babylonian temples. When leaders' ego surpassed wisdom, religious and cultural centers were neglected or misused, accelerating societal collapse. Ottoman capitals. Trade stagnated while palaces flourished. Luxury over necessity became the norm. Civilizations crumble not from external enemies alone, but from internal negligence and mismanagement fueled by comfort and arrogance. The throne and the city. Picture this. The ruler on his golden throne leans forward, eyes scanning the chaos, blind to the human cost around him. Smoke billows from crumbling rooftops. Distant fires cast flickering orange and red across shattered walls. The foreground sharp, background blurred cinematic focus emphasizes isolation and threat. Courtiers freeze in fear or hesitation, mirroring the paralysis of indecision that leads empires to collapse. The scene is almost tactile. The smell of ash, the echo of falling stones, the distant cries of a city undone by choices made from comfort and arrogance. Patterns across time, across centuries, patterns emerge. Comfort versus survival. Rulers often choose the ease of tradition over the challenge of adaptation. Pride versus humility. Hubris blinds leaders to reality, causing cascading consequences. Delay versus action. Ignoring early warning signs guarantees the magnitude of ruin. From Rome to Qing China, Ottoman guilds to medieval Europe, the formula is consistent: power without wisdom, comfort over foresight, pride over humility leads to collapse. Moral lessons in human terms. Even in ruins, stories endure. Each fallen tower, each abandoned street tells the same lesson. Ego is a silent killer. Neglect multiplies small errors into disasters. Communities pay the price for rulers' comfort. The shadows of fallen cities are reminders to all. Authority carries responsibility, and decisions made from ease rather than courage bring inevitable consequence. Preparing for the climax. As we approach Part 3, the stakes rise. The narrative will shift from observation to human consequences, dramatic conflicts, and the collapse of civilizations due to the rulers' arrogance. We'll explore how ordinary people react when empires fail. The final warnings ignored. Catastrophic consequences that could have been avoided with humility and foresight. Every ruined cityscape, every shadowed throne, is a story about the human choice between comfort and survival, pride and wisdom, domination and ruin. History shows that the moments just before disaster are often quietest, deceptive calm masking the storms ahead. The silence carries a lesson. What rulers ignore in comfort today becomes the ruin of tomorrow. The tipping point of power. Even the mightiest thrones cannot withstand cumulative neglect. Small errors, ignored warnings, and delayed decisions multiply like wildfire. Late Roman Empire. The repeated resistance of landowners to tax reforms, combined with internal corruption, finally ignited civil wars that reshaped the map of Europe forever. The Republic was gone. The empire had transformed into a centralized autocracy, its former stability lost. Qing China. Hesitation to adopt industrial techniques meant foreign powers established economic dominance. By the time reform occurred, centuries of opportunity had been lost. Ottoman guilds. Stubbornness in maintaining outdated craft methods created economic stagnation. When factories emerged elsewhere, the empire lagged behind, culturally rich, but financially vulnerable. The tipping point is always reached when rulers prioritize ego over necessity, comfort over foresight, and pride over humility. The people's perspective. While thrones burn with glory and arrogance, ordinary citizens bear the brunt of mismanagement. Famine in medieval Europe. Crops failed. Families starved because the ruling class refused to adopt crop rotation. Generations suffered for leaders' pride. Peasants in feudal Japan. Lands became unsustainable due to stubborn attachment to tradition. Villages were abandoned, and families displaced. French wine regions. Ignoring phylloxera science led to economic collapse and cultural loss. Entire communities lost livelihoods. History repeatedly illustrates that the ruler's choice of comfort is often the people's crisis. Power may appear untouchable, but survival depends on collective action, adaptation, and humility. Picture the throne now. The ruler's silhouette remains imposing, but the surrounding city is engulfed in chaos. Flames rise higher. Shadows stretch across cracked streets, and the smoke thickens. Courtiers scatter in panic, bridges collapse, markets are consumed by fire, and distant towers tumble in slow motion. The visual is almost tangible. The glow of gold reflects the last vestiges of power while destruction closes in, signaling the end of an era. The throne, once a symbol of dominance, now sits amid ruin, a stark contrast between ambition and consequence. Lessons from history's ruins. Across civilizations, one pattern remains consistent. Hubris invites disaster. Those who assume immortality for their power always meet limits. Ignoring change ensures collapse. Whether technological, economic, or social, resistance to adaptation amplifies risk. The cost is human. Citizens, peasants, and ordinary people pay the consequences of rulers' choices. Humility is survival. Wisdom, foresight, and measured decision-making preserve kingdoms, arrogance accelerates decay. The ruins we see today, crumbling towers, abandoned cities, and faded monuments, are testimonials of lessons ignored, warnings dismissed, and comfort chosen over courage. Stories from the edge: Rome and the Senate's blindness. The late Roman Republic saw senators entangled in comfort and wealth. Reforms to stabilize governance were resisted, leading to civil wars. Julius Caesar's rise was inevitable, and the Republic's fall was written in the hesitation and pride of those who occupied its corridors. Babylon under Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar's pride clouded judgment. The Bible recounts his humbling, yet his kingdom's eventual decline was foreshadowed by ego-driven decisions. Monuments remained, but society faltered. French vines and agricultural stubbornness. Vineyards ignored scientific intervention, traditional methods clinging to perceived perfection. The phylloxera blight spread like wildfire, economies crumbled, and communities suffered. Adaptation would have saved them, but comfort delayed action. Each story, each ruin, is a mirror reflecting what humans do when power eclipses wisdom. Cinematic human consequences. Imagine individuals within the collapsing cities. Children clutching tattered garments, running past crumbling palaces. Merchants in shock as centuries-old markets vanish in fire. Soldiers frozen in indecision as the empire's structure collapses around them. These visuals underscore a truth. Thrones may seem eternal, but human lives hinge on choices made from comfort and pride. Moral reckoning. Power chosen without moral grounding leads inevitably to ruin. The Torah, Bible, and Quran converge on this truth. Torah. Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. Bible. For all who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Quran. Do not let the wealth or power you possess make you forget the limits set by Allah. Those who transgress will find ruin. Across time, these principles manifest in cities engulfed in smoke, thrones abandoned, and civilizations left to crumble. Final reflection: power and responsibility. The lesson is clear. Power is a tool, not a shield. Thrones and palaces can dazzle, but survival depends on humility, foresight, and courage. Those who sit comfortably, blind to warnings, find themselves surrounded by ruins. History is a mirror. Every fallen city, every crumbling palace, every burned marketplace is a story of choices made, ignored, or postponed. The throne may shine, but comfort is always temporary. Now, take a moment to reflect. In your own life, are there thrones you cling to, positions of pride, comfort, or ego that could bring ruin if ignored? History teaches that survival is about adaptation, humility, and courage, not just dominance. If you found these stories powerful, share them, discuss them, and remember, the lessons of the past are not just for kings and rulers. They are for all of us, every day.